Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining the Justice for Gerard movement, turning this moment into a movement. As you may know, I am Jay Love, and just in case this is your first time joining us, the moment this movement was birthed for me was when my son Gerard was wrongfully convicted of a crime that he didn't do. So, and that birthed this Justice for Gerard movement. So, so we're here. We not only advocate for Gerard, we also use this space as a platform to advocate for others in the fight for justice. We raise awareness on issues, and we speak truth to power on criminal justice reform. So thank you for joining us today. So today we are starting an 8-week series on wrongful incarceration. And we're going to take each cause of wrongful incarceration and make it a whole set itself. Because it's so much, you can't do it all at one 1 hour sitting. We have to split it all up. Also, got T in there. So thank you. So let's start with Chris Shea. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and who you are, and to the movement of for justice.
All righty. So yes, my name is Trisha Duckworth. I'm the executive director of Survivor Speak. We work throughout Southeastern Michigan, fighting for criminal justice reform, fighting for racial equity, but most of all to help amplify voices around taboo topics and social injustices. Wrongful Convictions is one of our top platforms where we believe the injustice of wrongful convictions is an atrocity that we all need to pay attention to. It's everybody's business, and we need all hands on deck for this fight.
Yes, you're right. Thank you, Trisha. So next we have attorney Hugo J. Mack. Can you introduce yourself?
First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be on the platform, and it's always a pleasure to see my sister Trisha, and it's a wonderful thing, and all of you. My name is Hugo J. Mack. I'm a criminal defense attorney, former chief assistant public defender. The plight of the people that have been wrongfully convicted and overly convicted is something very personal to me, not only professionally, understanding what it's like to defend people that are wrongfully charged, but actually being a victim of a wrongful conviction myself. So this is not an academic matter for me. It is a very personal, spiritual matter for me. And I can tell you from decades of being in the courtroom, it is not as hard to convict somebody as the system would try to make you think. The safeguards are only as good as the people that are manning them. And far too often, we see the people manning them are rife with prejudice, with discrimination, with hatred, with stereotype. But not only that, the wrong that occurs when people are paid a debt to society, whether people think they owe it or not. But we still discriminate against people in housing, in employment, in education, in social acceptance. In the state of Michigan, you cannot sit on a jury if you have a criminal justice involvement on a felony level. So we stigmatize people continually, and that stigmatization has got to stop. And that is what I've dedicated my career to bring fairness, equity, and justice. And so I'm glad to be here and so proud to be able to take part.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here as well. Next is Allie Hughes. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes. Hi, I'm Alexandria. I'm an activist with Michigan Liberation and also Accountability for Dearborn. A lot of my activist work focuses on Black people and people of color, specifically because there's a cycle of hate that continues that just needs to stop. That's damaging our well-being and also our mental health. I'm also a firm believer that a woman's body is not a group discussion. And with Michigan Liberation, a lot of the work I do there, I was with Oakland County team, and we are demanding prosecutorial transparency as a basis to start triggering change. We need to be able to see what's happening, like exactly. We need to be able to analyze certain areas to really determine the solution. Those most affected should be determining the solution. People that are Black, people that have been incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated, these are the people we're trying to make sure are on the forefront of that. So that's my work with Michigan Liberation with Accountability for Dearborn. We want to make sure funds are put back into the community and, not into the police department. Almost half of the city budget goes to the police in Dearborn, and we're trying to stop that, as well as stop the racism that is happening against Black people in Dearborn at the hands of the police.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, we have Reverend Tia Littlejohn Taylor. Which one, Tia?
Little John is good. That's good.
Just introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
So like she said, I'm Tia Littlejohn, and I have been executive director at nonprofits for a while, but I am a minister at Transforming Love Community. And I have a company called The Choice Zone, and the goal is to get our people to get into the mind to create the choices that they want to achieve, and to stop the patterns that have been handed down to us, the mental patterns that we continue to repeat. I am so blessed and happy that Janice has invited me to be on this platform. Right now, I'm working on my doctorate, and at the forefront of my doctorate is taking the eyes off of the victims of oppression and putting it back on the oppressor, because racism is not our problem. It's not our problem at all. Racism is a mental illness. Anybody who has extreme hate for anyone has a mental illness. And I believe that when we begin to make that a societal ill, then we'll see some changes. It's not normal to be a racist. And that's why I stand at this point, and I want to make sure that Wrongful Convictions is all about racism. It's all about allowing people to continue to view us as inadequate and not in a position to receive what we are due. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. So again, today is part 1 of the Wrongful Conviction series. There are 6 common causes of wrongful convictions: eyewitness misidentification, unreliable or improper forensic science, false confession, informant testimony, government misconduct, and inadequate defense. But I want to push it back a little further. For it starts at the police encounter. So today we're going to discuss misconduct, systemic issues, implicit biases, and how they influence the police encounter, which can lead to a wrongful conviction. So I know we talk about this, but someone that I in the movement, I heard them say, if you survive the police encounter, it's quite possible you may be wrongfully convicted of a crime that you didn't do. We find that more and more this is happening because we see the slew of exonerations that are happening every day. I think it was just 1 or 2 yesterday. One gentleman was in prison over 44 years for something he didn't do. So it starts at the police encounter, oftentimes with biases, form biases that we have, that they have before they even start an investigation. So who wants to take it off? We can start right there with the police encounter.
Yeah.
Actually a case that kind of sort of how I got a bird's eye view into the corruption, right? That was taking place in Washtenaw County with the Veazey brothers case. And that case started with an officer, right, coercing witnesses. Actually, this officer took advantage of a young lady who battled schizophrenia. She told them that she needed to have a lawyer. She told them that, that they should give her a doctor. They would not. They kept pressing her to the point where, for whatever reason, they had it out for these brothers, but they coerced this young lady into saying that, well, they're not going to believe you if you don't say you went in that house. So you're going to have to say you went in the house. The girl didn't even go in the house. I mean, so what do you do when you have officers with such low integrity and morals and values that would coerce individuals and just slap a case on people? And this was a triple homicide that involved a child. And where's the justice? Because those killers are still out on the street. I've done the research. I know who they are. Well, I better not say that too loud because they might come looking. We know who these people are. They're still walking around on the street. But Brian Mackey, who is on his way out, thank goodness, sticks to his conviction. And how do you, and he had the nerve to say, well, do they have an Innocence Project? I said, no, you're the Innocence Project. You know they are innocent and you let them out. But he did not. And this is the continuation of what we see, not just in Washtenaw County, it happens across this nation where officers are bowing down to these low morals and values and lying, just straight up lying. And we've got to put an end to that. We need legislation to hold them accountable for that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let me say this. In terms of my career, I could not agree more with what Trisha just said. You see, part of the problem is when you allow people that can pass any kind of a psychological evaluation, all you have to do is basically lie and you can pass any kind of psychological evaluation. All right. So the filter process for these people becoming officers in the first place is very porous, especially if you've got people that are evaluating them that are bigots and racist themselves. So you see, so that is an easy thing to overcome. All right. So you've got individuals who, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, who initially come into law enforcement because they want to protect and serve the community. Part of the problem with law enforcement is that you tend to become the thing you see the most. And I want to make it very, very clear. I mean, law enforcement sees a lot of heinous stuff. I mean, people that are mangled in automobile accidents, young babies that are shot in drug drive-bys and what have you. But the problem is, once these individuals become police officers, they're allowed just to go on with the flow. There's that blue wall, there's that blue code that says we're going to back up our officers. It's us versus them. You see, that's a problem. And the problem is not the police in the community. The problem is the military in the police in the community. You see, that's the difference. Because a law enforcement officer, and this is part of our problem as members in society when we want protection, which we have a right to. But anytime you cannot tell the difference between a peace officer in their regale with the guns and the bulletproof vests and a soldier, in other words, a member of the United States military, you put them side by side, you cannot tell the difference. Therein lies the problem right there, you see. Because with that kind of mentality comes not to protect and to serve, but to occupy and dominate, okay? Being the alpha male or alpha female, and that means putting people in jeopardy in order to protect the esteem of the system. So I don't want to monopolize, but it's a very real problem.
Yeah, it starts to feel like it's an everyday thing, misconduct, and it is the norm. Like, you know, it's unfortunate to say, but it's true. And just thinking about my experiences and experiences of family members, like the police is where it all starts with wrongful convictions. Is where it all starts, and you start to feel like they can do whatever they want to do. My brother, for example, was followed home by Livonia police twice to his house in Redford. And, you know, it's like, that should not be a thing. You should not be coming home from work and having to deal with that, and you didn't do anything. And then you start to wonder, what did they take down from me? Like, what information do they have? They're following me like they want to come back to me. Like, it makes you paranoid. And that's how wrongful convictions happen, because they see a young Black man who is trying to make it, and they know if they bring that kind of person in, no one's going to turn a blind eye, unfortunately. And it's an easy target for them. It's just really unfortunate.
Absolutely. Tia?
Yeah, I think that at some point we need to take a look at how did it begin? How did it begin? When you know police didn't come about until Black people were freed. And so the police were created for African Americans. You know, and so when you know this, the whole system needs to be transformed, because the mindset is continuing from generation to generation. The mindset that the Black person is wrong already, especially the Black male, is already wrong. And sad to say, in the studies, Black people are born thinking that they're already at a disadvantage and already wrong. They feel wrong just for being Black. You know, unfortunately, my son, well, I guess I can say fortunately, but I have 2 sons, and one of my sons confessed and told me, "Mom, I've been pulled over 7 times and never had a ticket." He's never had a ticket, never. He's the one who always drove slow. But yet he's been pulled over 7 times. And the one time he was helping his sister who had a flat tire on the freeway. And he thought the officer was coming to help him. And instead, the officer began to interrogate him and then had his hand on his gun. It sent chills through me. And this happened, not even a year ago. And he never told me, because he knew I would. Did you get his badge number? You know, and this was in Ipsy. This was in Ipsy that it happened. You know, and then another time it was in Livonia. They don't even like going through Livonia. So I mean, it's terrible that you even have to, you know, have the parameters for your children and say you can't go here, can't go here. If you go here, go really slow. When you're on your freeway and you're coming down Southfield, slow down. When you get to Dearborn, make sure you do 55 until you get to Warren.
And that's the sad reality. Mm-hmm. But that's a real conversation. I know when my son started driving, I had to say, hey, don't have 3 or 4 people in the car. Hurry up, get home before it's too dark. Stay out of Livonia, Farmington Hills. You know, like all these lists of things that you have to do because of the biases oftentimes dictates the encounter. So, you know, from the very first interaction with police, being arrested, booked, charged, convicted, sentenced, Black people are discriminated against, disproportionately criminalized at every stage. And that's from that history that you were talking about, Tia, you know, where it was birthed. Okay. So wrongful convictions are a form of criminal investigative failure. And I was reading, it's not only, it continues to go. It starts from maybe the encounter. And then once it gets into, the judicial system, sometimes we think that it might be corrected. But oftentimes, just like in Gerard's case, it may not ever be corrected. And it's just the pathway to the wrongful conviction. Mr. Hugo, would you like to say anything about that?
Yes, because that is so true. You see, because the thing of it is that the rich never need be fearful of not obtaining justice. They can buy investigators. They can buy forensic experts. You remember that case out in California back in the mid-90s, that Heisman Trophy winner accused of killing those two folks, all right? He had the ability to hire what they call a dream team, okay? A dream team to defend him, forensic experts in science and scientists. So the problem is, when you've got wealth being the primary determiner of justice, you've got a system that's a double whammy, particularly to Black, Indigenous, and poor peoples, okay? So, and it's a great myth that somehow the system is self-correcting. It's like a vacuum cleaner that supposedly cleans itself. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You see, because once you get that police officer who's got that bond, that kinship to the prosecutor, you've got a problem. It was my pleasure to run for Washtenaw County prosecutor last year, earlier on. And one of the reasons we needed a new prosecutor was we needed somebody there that is going to say, we're not friends. The prosecutor's job is not to be the friend of the policeman. This is the problem we've had for nearly 30 years in Washtenaw County. That's one of the reasons I ran for county prosecutor. Because the problem is, friends look out for each other. Friends will cover for each other. Friends will make excuse for each other. Friends will sometimes lie for each other, okay? And when you've got somebody that has the power of life and death an arm's length away, which we give all police officers, the power of life and death an arm's length away, that is too doggone much power for a person to have and know they got a friend downtown on Main Street. Okay, that's wrong. So it is a problem, but we've got to start at the root of it. The root is the relationship, all right? The relationship. Because when police officers know, look, I stand a chance of going to prison myself, all right? If I jack this person up, if I put my knee on this person's neck for 8 minutes, all right? If I slam this person's head into a car. But when they know they've got covered, they've got a friend, they've got a system that supports them, especially a union. And I'm gonna say this, I'm basically a union supporter. I believe in union rights. Unions have done a lot, but police unions have been one of the most destructive forces to Black and brown peoples in the history of the United States of America. And I don't care what you say. If you don't like me, don't like me, because it's the truth. Because what they do is they get these collective bargaining agreements. The police don't have to play by the same rules that you and I play. They have an automatic right to have a union representative there. Everything has got to stop. They know what their rights are. The average person does not know their rights, and they're not told their rights by police, because you notice how these body cams get turned off quite a bit. So we don't know. So everything you're saying is true, and I'm sorry for monopolizing, but it's something very personal to me, because when that first police encounter takes place, they get to fudge what the report says. And it's always them versus the citizen, and we know who the judge and jury tend to believe is the police.
Right.
Yeah, that unions, they prevent qualified immunity from even being like broken.
That's
like
right.
they can't be held accountable. It's like, okay, people want to say, okay, don't get rid of the police. We need some kind of structure, some control. The opposing arguments, one of the things they'll say is like, okay, but we can't even hold them accountable when they do something wrong. So what do you propose? Like nothing is working. I can't like get justice if something happens to me or someone else. So I'm just supposed to take what you're giving me? Like that's not how this works.
That's the greatest injustice, in my opinion, are some of these unions when it comes to schools as well. You know, so when we think about what a union is supposed to do, it's supposed to protect, right? But who's going to protect the kids? Who's going to protect us, right? And I look at when the guy that was over the union that came to the podium with such arrogance when George Floyd was killed. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
We watched a man be murdered for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and you stand at this podium knowing it was wrong, yet you still defend. That is got to stop. So we're going to do anything to be honest, really, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. We need to attack these unions. Yeah, protect your job on certain things, but when it comes to misconduct, when it comes to turning your cameras off and all of that type of crap that they're doing, the union should take their hands off. When it comes to it, and I don't know if y'all seen this, it was in Chicago. They had the wrong warrant. Beat this lady, took the ram, beat the lady door in. She's standing there naked in front of 12 officers. And they standing there and then get the nerve to get back to the car and say, oh, I think we made a mistake. The paperwork ain't even right. What? But you watch what the union does. And I'm going to tell you something. They don't care about paying a couple million to us to humiliate us. They don't care about dropping a few million on our families to take our lives because they don't value our lives. And we've got to make them value our lives. And I don't have the answers as how we do that, but we got to figure it out.
Paula White said, Pamela White said, Mayor Lightfoot of Chicago had to admit to a lie about when she knew about the police video of the shameful mistaken arrest of the innocent woman. I saw that the lady was naked.
That was very sad.
And it was hurtful. It was sad. And I'm glad she fought to get that video out because these are that. And without cameras is could turn into a wrongful conviction. But these are how these things happen. And when you don't have any accountability or transparency, or people, like you said, the unions take up for it or act like it's, part of the job, families and innocent people's lives are destroyed by this behavior. Tia, did you want to say something?
The one thing I wanted to say is that I think, what everybody touched upon, which was really excellent, is the money that the unions have to back the police. They have the pocketbooks. They hold the purse. And until we create our purse, until we create the money to back ourselves, and we really have to be diligent about this. This is one of the things that I will always talk about, and that is we need to create monies, not for dinners, not for us to have speaking engagements and people sit down at dinner and we talk about Black lives and Black history. But I'm talking about a fund. I'm talking about our own union that backs us, so that we can go toe to toe in the courtroom and we go and we sue their butts beyond what they have and prosecute them. Not where they just have to pay $1 million here and $1 million there, because they do have the money for that. They already put that in there. They already put that to the side. Mm-hmm. But they are saying that we don't really care about your lives. They are saying that.
Right.
So my thing is, we need to create our own fund. We need our own fund to back us.
And if you're saying, yeah, they're saying they don't care about our lives. Those are people that do not need to be in office or any position serving the public, helping the public. If you don't care that this stuff is happening, you don't have a heart, that doesn't bother you at all. Like, affected or unaffected, it should bother you that this is happening. From a humanity standpoint, you should not be okay with this happening. You should not be okay. Like, if you look at Dearborn, for example, you look at census data, clearly know the population isn't primarily Black. 4% is Black in Dearborn. We know that. But, you know, at least 90% is white or white classified. So you got 45% of that's white women, but only 17% of them received tickets all last year. So, like, that doesn't bother you? Like, there's clearly a disparity and people are being targeted. You shouldn't be okay with that. And you should not be in office at all if you're fine sitting there and allowing it.
Right. And I want to say this one key thing, that we're talking about wrongful convictions because they can happen to anybody. There is no, it can happen to you, your friend, your mother, anyone at any time. And I want to make that clear as we do this series, that it's just not happening to, it's happening to, you know, our sons or whatever, but it can happen to anyone. It can happen to us. So as we discussed that, and I know, just like you were saying, Allie, you have the data to show how it's happening in Dearborn and Livonia, and it's terrible. And I just want to put that out there on this platform, that, you know, justice will not be served to those who are unaffected as outraged as those who are. So we can't change this until we all jump in, because some way it's going to affect you. If it doesn't happen to you, you're going to pay for it in your taxes. You know, it's on some level, it's your problem. So we have to correct these issues.
You know, you just said the most important thing why we continue to see the continuation of all injustice. Because people don't care unless it knocks on their door.
That's right.
And I think when the world was stopped, George Floyd was killed the way that he was in front of the whole world. It woke something up inside people that just weren't paying attention. So if we look at it now, a lot more people are actually paying attention to what's going on. But we've got to keep, I say, keep that same energy. We have to keep that same momentum. We come out, something happens, we get mad, we march, and then we go home. One of our loved ones are incarcerated, we will march, and then we'll come to the trial, and then they're convicted, and then we go home. We've got to get to the point where we stay the course. See, while we're holding everyone accountable, we need to turn that lens on the inside and hold ourselves accountable as well. Right. These individuals in power didn't just get like this.
Right.
We've allowed them to think that it was okay to do what they want.
Yeah.
Why? Because we elect them and then we walk away. But we got to get to the point where we elect them and then we stay the course to holding them accountable so that they know it's not about their agenda. It's about the agenda of the people. If you don't hold the heart of the people and what we think is important, then you are not going to have that seat. And until we change that narrative out here, we're going to continue to see injustice. So we got to stay the course and we got to do it together.
Right.
Absolutely.
Silence is consent. And we've been silent for so long that we gave them our okay by saying nothing.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So, I already went there. Okay. So I want to talk to you guys about biases. One of the biases that I saw was confirmation bias. And it's like tunnel vision, rushing to judgment. And I noticed in a lot of wrongful incarcerations or wrongful convictions, that's once the investigator or whoever, the detective, zero in on that one person, everything else goes out the window. Attorney Matt.
Oh, absolutely. Look, you know, we would be here for about another 20 hours, and I can just tell you personally what I know of seeing these police, that they look at the job, and not all police, but far too many look at the job as a personal possession.
Mm-hmm.
It's something like it's your birthright, or $1 million in the bank. It belongs to you. You've got to protect it, and you cannot, because of your hubris, because you think that badge is so shiny and that gun is so powerful, you cannot admit you made a mistake.
Right.
Because to admit you made a mistake does two things. One, it shows the system is flawed in general. Two, it shows you are flawed in specific. These two things I run into on a regular and chronic basis. So in terms of the police, the hard, and prosecutors too, by the way, and that's why we need a new brand of prosecutor. And hopefully, in a couple of weeks or so, we'll have one. I certainly hope he keeps his promises. I'll certainly be watching.
If he don't,
right.
he's my comrade, he's my brother, but if he don't, he will get his first protest. And it's nothing personal. People got to learn how to keep their word and do what they say. Don't just feed us a bunch of stuff around election time. But I can honestly say, with the transition teams and stuff like that, we're starting to see the promises come into shape and policy. And that's what we need. We need that policy. We don't need your lip service, because that means nothing.
That's exactly right. And so when you get that kind of policy that Trey's talking about from the chief law enforcement officer in the county, it sends a message.
Mm-hmm.
It sends a very clear message. But unfortunately, that message is not going to be served until one definitive thing happens. And that is a rogue police officer is prosecuted. Okay? Because other than that, they know the threat is there.
Mm-hmm.
But until it actually hits home, until they realize if there's a rogue, let's say deputy or a rogue police officer in Ann Arbor that's actually called on the carpet and held to account by a prosecutor with courage, then we've only gotten part way there. We haven't gotten to the mountaintop quite yet.
Yeah, and the biases. One way to prevent that beyond those encounters, like addressing it at the encounter with the person that is the victim, addressing it in the courtroom, it should start before that. It should start at home.
Mm-hmm.
We have to deal with internalized racism. And in this country, I don't care who you are, everybody is either affected by racism to some extent. And people need to start looking at themselves at home and having those conversations and calling each other out to make sure those biases go away. That's one way everybody can participate. And I would personally love to see more of that, calling each other out when those things are pointed out in the workplace, in schools, at home. It don't matter, like the whole, this is not a good conversation at work, and this is not, that whole thing needs to stop. Now it's gone too far, and that needs to stop, and we have to address it now.
Right.
Each other.
Holding everyone accountable, ourselves accountable, our loved ones accountable, our friends accountable. Once we start, taking those ourselves accountable, once we start working on accountability and transparency and amongst ourselves, then we can push it out and expect it from others. So first we have to have it amongst ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Tia?
Yeah. Another thing is that they need to be tested. Law enforcement and anybody in systemic positions, they need to be tested. They need psychological testing, and there are implicit bias tests that they can take, so you can see where you are. And look, it does not mean we have the innate power within us to judge. We automatically judge. You judged this morning. You decided what color you were going to put on, what you were going to wear, what shoes you were going to put on, And so we do that automatically. We make decisions. Now, how we make that decision. What is at the root of your decision? And this is where the implicit bias test, you need to be tested. These law enforcement officers, they need testing to see, are you able to make rational, logical, and unbiased decisions while you are serving the people? Because the problem is that they're making decisions and that decision is not coming from a good space.
Right.
And my thing is, some of them don't need to carry a weapon. Some of them, if they were psychologically tested, would not, they would be deemed insane and would be in need of therapy. And they need to have testing.
And back on what you said earlier, one of you guys said all the things that they see on the job, you know, the mangled bodies, the gunshot victims, the domestic violence victims, day in and day out. This is your job. Somewhere down the line, you do need to have some kind of testing, because after a while, you start seeing these things. You start forming opinions. You can't help it, you know. And so once you start forming these opinions, birth these biases that you have. So when you see someone who looks familiar to somebody who did something else, that's how those things shape, come into the spectrum of, you know, oh, I put this guy over because he had a hoodie on, you know, and his pants was hanging down, you know, he looked like the guy who did such and such last week. And these how these things take off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what's so ironic is that even just your everyday people, we make these decisions, we have these biases. You know, how many have talked to somebody and were getting ready to get in a relationship, but didn't get in a relationship because that person reminded them of the other person they had just dated. Didn't even try to talk to the person, because automatically, just by looking at them, just by hearing the voice, it reminded them of somebody that they had a negative experience with. And so we got, like you said, all of you said, we have to look at ourselves. We have to be honest with our own biases and work. It takes work. You got to work so that you can come from a space that is clear enough to judge clearly.
Right.
And, you know, these biases, as they're created, and then you start to do more things, officers more likely to do certain things, like you said, people reminding them of other people. And when you look at research, there's research that's shown that police officers are more likely to commit suicide than to be harmed. Us trying to change the system isn't just for us, it's for them too.
Right.
We're keeping humanity in mind. And I feel like that gets lost when it's like, no, this is harming our mental health and our well-being. You too. So, you know, it's definitely important to break down these biases with each other. And yeah.
Right. Because if you have a mentally healthy police officer who's making wise decisions, you know, based off of circumstances and not off of emotions and biases, you have less people, innocent people, being wrongfully convicted of crimes. That's in my opinion.
And I want to say this also, in terms of bias. You know, they used to have residency requirements where if you're like on a police department, you've got to like live like in the city of Detroit. Okay.
Right.
And unions have challenged that all over the country as discriminatory. So what happens is you have a lot of officers who don't live in Detroit who work in Detroit. All right. So they go back to communities that don't look anything like the communities they're patrolling, don't look anything like them at all. So once again, you get into that mentality of an occupying force. All right. So I'm here as a soldier for 8 or 12 hours, all right? And I'm going to act like a soldier. You give me a gun, you give me a high-powered rifle, you give me a radio, you give me a badge, you give me a taser, by the way, all right, which can kill you, by the way. You give me all these things, and I know that if I take advantage of these folks, I don't have to see them unless I'm putting them in jail or in court. I'm going back to my house, my neighborhood, where people don't look like anything like these folks, and I'm good. I'm good.
I think it goes back to not being able to hold them accountable. You can train them all you want. You can not, officers, like the people, not saying them as a person is bad or anything, but the system can make you bad, can make you a bad person. And just not being able to hold them accountable, they can do whatever they want. And that cycle is continuing. You can take it back to where it all started, post-slavery, when you start to look at Black codes. There was something called the Casual Killing Act. And you could get away with killing someone if you just said they wronged you. You didn't even need proof or anything. And that's now what it feels like. George Floyd and every other case, Michael Brown, that's what it felt like. Because they deemed that person not following authority, it was okay to kill them. So we just have to me, I feel like we have to be able to hold them accountable, at least, if we're going to get anywhere.
Right. And back to what Attorney Matt was saying about the residencies, officers living in the areas that they work. I was actually on the show, and I was listening to one of the Wayne County Police, Detroit Police Commissioners, and he said he was speaking to a female officer who lived in Monroe, Michigan, but she worked in Detroit, Michigan. And he asked her, like, why do you come all the way to Detroit from Monroe to be a police officer? And he said she told him that she wants to be where the action is. And so again, action. Where do we get these people? That's bias.
Absolutely ridiculous.
What are you gonna say, Tia?
The other thing is we need to admit what we did to ourselves. When you talk about the police working and living in the community, we overturned that. We voted for that. We did that. Now, I didn't personally, but the majority got that vote in. That was after Coleman Young. I went down on my knees and cried and said, Lord, I know he had turned over in his grave, because he had, fought. We fought to make sure, and I was a young girl. My mother was on the forefront of this, to make sure that people who worked in the city, if you worked for the city of Detroit, you had to live in the city. And that was what had to happen. So we overturned that because we wanted to live outside the city. And then we allowed that to come back in. And immediately when that happened, that's when they began the destruction of our courts. So we didn't have the courts in the city anymore. That was governed by the residents. So the people who you judge within the community. So it would be good if we could do that again, or at least begin that conversation on how do we do that? Or do we do it?
People in our community, a lot of them, they don't want to be police because of what police stand for. You know what I mean? The foundation and everything for me, I don't buy into the bad apple syndrome. And Lee Tucson, I call him the general, he said it best. He said his grandfather told him, if the apple is rotten, that means the tree bad.
Right.
Okay? So when we look at this, because listen, this is all it's about. It's about the next charge. It's about cracking that next case with prosecutors. It's about that conviction rate. How do we change that narrative? We don't care about your conviction rate. Why do they celebrate that so much? Why? These are all tones that were set, but that office belongs to the people.
It's about the quotas.
It belongs to the people. So if it belongs to the people, we have to take these offices back. But the only way we do that is if we stay involved. If we are proactive and less reactive, then we will definitely see some change.
Absolutely.
And proactive also means creating new policies and new laws. That's what it boils down to. That reflect what the people want and not what the institutions want to give us.
Outdated. Institution is so outdated. And to think, I was just in a meeting today with the it was for Oakland County, Karen McDonald's chief deputy, and we were talking about how there's some people still collecting data, paper data, within like the prosecutor department, police department, like that's still happening. How is that still happening? At this point, it's like you don't care. You see people as numbers and just something to shift around that's not an actual living, breathing thing that has feelings. If you think paper data is okay and you can't find the information, like it just needs to stop completely. And we need to start being able to hold these people accountable to their words, not just at the election, but beyond. We have the momentum. Now we have to put that into some real policy change.
Attorney Matt.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But, in terms of what Trichet said, we've got to stay engaged. And, lethargy is something that has, beset the African-American community for quite some time. We need to be honest about that. We need to be honest about that. African-Americans, indigenous people are the ones that are done the worst, but seem to have the least kind of staying power. Okay. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I know, we get the worst jobs, have the worst food, the worst health care, breathe the worst air, okay, have the worst health insurance. I mean, I get it. I get all that. But yet and still, I think for me and my generation, drawing a lot of strength from Dr. King, he wouldn't let nobody turn him around, and eyes on the prize. And I'm praying now with Black Lives Matter and some of the great protests I saw this summer, and work people like Trichet and everybody here with us, that we can keep it going. And elections have consequences, And I'm telling you right now, whatever the future holds, it's going to be a whole lot better come January 20th than if the election had gone the other way. Because it starts at the top. And I'm a preach for a moment here. When you have the leader of the free world that says Black Lives Matter is a sham, says there is no systemic racism, okay? People get what they deserve. If you go out to protest, police cracking somebody's head, you're a rioter, you're a looter, you're a communist, you're a socialist, all these kind of things. People are feeding off on that, okay? And I know at least 75 million people in this country that are feeding off of that. That's a hell of a lot of people, folks. That's a hell of a lot of people. Okay, so what I'm saying is, we may be small in number, but that's no excuse, because failure for us is not an option. Because, all of us here, perhaps we can live out our lives in relative comfort, but we all got kids, we all got nephews, we got grandkids, all right? What about them? So now is our time to work.
Absolutely. Tia, would you have something? I saw you.
Well, I was just agreeing. I said, absolutely, that's right, because we got to go to work. We got to go, and this is not a time to be silent. And I know what has held us back before is the fear. A lot of times it's the fear, fear. And that's what they continue to use is fear. So we have to know that fear is the tactic. Fear is the tactic all the time. Fear is the tactic. And so that's why they get us to make confessions, to confess to crimes that we didn't do, because of the fear of something else that could happen, and so they've been using it. So we got to continue to educate the community and the youth to the tactics.
Yeah.
That fear is the main tactic. And why do they use it? Because they're afraid. Because they all those people who have that mindset, who are in agreement with the leader of our country that's on his way out, all of those people have demonstrated that power to incite fear.
Yes.
And they agree with it. They agree with it. And so, you know, I would like us to be a United States. But right now they have been demonstrating that the war is not with any other country. They are warring. We have been warring within ourselves, within the country. And in order to stop it, we've got to stop being afraid.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
Yes, because like what Pam said, fear, false evidence appearing real. And that's true. Yes.
Right.
So we're getting close to our hour, and I'm gonna start with I'll start with you, Trisha. Leave us with something that you want us to know about. We'll have over the holiday because we won't be back until after the holiday. So to end 2020 with encouragement for the wrongfully convicted, those who are fighting for, for their loved ones, leave us with something encouraging.
As we all can see and people are feeling, this is a hard battle. And I know that I'm getting emotional just thinking about what some of you mothers and wives and children and what this has done to families. But I would just admonish everyone to just hold on to hope, right? Hope in these situations really are all we have, and to continue the fight together. Join up with some groups. Join up with some groups that you know are fighting. I'm telling you, it will give you so much passion and energy. It will breathe life back into you. And at this point, that's what we need. We need to just breathe life back into people who have lost hope, be there for one another, but understand that we have got to fight this fight and we got to do it together. We are stronger together. And the more that we organize and mobilize and change the narrative, I'm telling you, we can and we will see some changes. Jay, thank you so much for opening this platform for us. And we just appreciate you, sister.
Thank you, Trisha.
That's right.
Tia?
I had my mic off, so I wouldn't be making noises. Yeah, you know what? I just want to say thank you. That I'm so grateful for the platform, and that we need to continue the conversation, continue to lift each other up, and let us be confident that there are answers and solutions for us. And we have to expect it. We have to expect the good. There's no time now for us to lie down and continue to repeat the past, but we expect justice. I was hearing you guys talking earlier, and you were saying, Trisha said, I'm not asking anymore. No, we're demanding. This is not a question. We're not questioning. This is no question if you will. No, you will. You will. You will free our people. You will allow us access. You will give us justice for all humanity, definitely for us.
Yes. Allie.
Yes. Want to say thank you for sure for allowing me on this platform, and I'm grateful to be able to continue the conversation. I believe in these times of COVID where we can't do as much as we want to do, it's important to continue this conversation, keep the energy, keep this going in any way you can, whether online, in person, amongst each other, just keep that energy out there. And I'll also say we should all speak things into existence. I'm a big firm believer of the power of positive thinking and positive affirmations, especially for those that are in jail over the holidays, can't see their loved ones, those that are wrongfully convicted. we need to keep them in mind and keep them in our heart as we're doing our work out here. And we need to always stand together, even in the darkest times, even when we don't get along as activists and all that. We need to have each other's back. At the end of the day, we're practicing humanity over harm, and we have to do that with each other.
Absolutely. And Attorney Hugo Mack.
Well, first of all, thank you for this great platform. I'm so honored to have been a part of it with the other panelists here. And let me say this. Let me speak specifically to members in my profession. Let me start out by letting you know, it's my firm belief that the greatest defense against a bad cop is a good cop. The greatest defense against a bad prosecutor is a good prosecutor. And the greatest defense against a sellout criminal defense attorney is a criminal defense attorney who's going to say, I'm going to stand for what's right regardless. You know, because sometimes we get in these positions and people think they're making some decent money, you know. No, you're not. You think that because you got a nice house, you're secure. No, you're not. You got a nice car, you're okay. No, you aren't. Your family's secure in their house, you're fine. No, they're not. Because anything you have can be taken from you in less than a twinkling of an eye. And the thing of it is, my message to all defense attorneys, particularly that are out there, we're not in this profession to sell out.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in this profession to make friends. You're not in this profession to just run people through the system so you can get that paycheck, all right? Because your soul is much more important than a paycheck. Every one of us one day will be held to account. Once to die, then the judgment. And so what I'm saying to members of my profession, we can make a difference. All judges are lawyers. All prosecutors are lawyers. All defense attorneys are lawyers, all right? We can make a difference. Don't sell out. Keep that oath, brothers and sisters. Keep that oath, all right?
Thank you. I think we had. I think we're having a little bit of an issue. Trisha, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just real quick. You know, I thought about when Tia was saying, you know, about freedom, and it reminded me of Amistad when it said, "Give us free, give us free." But really quickly, I just want to let everybody know that we are doing a tour to show love to our incarcerated loved ones. It's going to be next weekend. So we're coming together with some agencies, organizations, the Justice for Gerard movement. Friday, we will be at Adrian. Saturday, we will be, where's Gerard?
Cotton and Jackson. Saturday,
we will be at Cotton. And on Sunday, we will be at Huron Valley in Ypsilanti. So please stay tuned. You can connect with the Justice for Gerard movement page, J Love's page, or myself, or Survivor Speak page for more details. But we will be out there uplifting our loved ones who are incarcerated because they need us right now.
Allie, you had something you want to add?
Yes. Accountability for Dearborn is having our Data Town Hall tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. to 7:30. And it's also co-hosted by Survivor Speak, as well as Michigan Liberation. We hope to see you all there. There will be other ones in February, dates to be determined, and also in the coming month. This one's focused on calls to service, policing in schools, and mental health, and a little bit more than that. But we'll be deep diving into that data, and we hope to see everyone there.
All right. So I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I want to thank you guys who are watching or who will watch later. Thank you for watching. We'll be back after the holiday with all of us, and are continuing to talk about wrongful convictions and how they happen, the history, and our call for change. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. I look forward to 2021. And I want to leave us with this video. But it is our duty to fight for our freedom It's our duty to win. We must love, respect, and honor each other. We have nothing to lose but our change. Thank you. Thank you, everyone on the panel. And I'll see you guys next year. Stay safe and have a great holiday.
Amen.
Same to you. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you. Bye. Thank you.